Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with our very first episode of Season 2 of Tales from the Tacklezone. This is a series that is dedicated to our Blood Bowl battle reports, especially with the second season of the newly updated Blood Bowl game by Games Workshop. And this is game number 1. It is a game that takes place in our Old World Conference between the Gouged Eye of the Orcs and Goblins versus the Reikland Reavers of the humans. My two friends, Sister Serial, who will be the head coach for the Reikland Reavers, and my buddy Brother Grimm, who will be the head coach for the Gouged Eye, will be throwing it down on our very first game of Season 2 of Blood Bowl. So for those of you guys who are tuning in for the very first time, my gaming group and I have decided to do another season, another league of Blood Bowl. It's been a while since we actually did our first one. The first time we actually did our first season, we only had 4 teams participate in that one. And we were always wanted to do a much bigger league later on after we got done doing that first one. But the problem, though, is that things like COVID-19 happened. So because we were unable to actually get together to actually create our Blood Bowl teams. But now that everything's starting to settle down again, we're back. And this time we have 12 teams in our leagues. We're divided our 12 teams into 2 smaller conferences called the Old World Conference and the New World Conference. And each conference will have 6 teams. And each of the teams will fight in typical round-robin format. The champions of each division will then face off in the Blood Bowl. So this is our first game, which is taking place in the Old World Conference. Gouged Eye versus the Reikland Reavers. As you can see in our sports box, we have our 2 announcers, both our High Elf as well as Dwarf referees. We'll be viewing it from the view box at O'Reilly Hall. As you can see, the stadiums are packed on both sides with Orcs and Goblins for the Gouged Eye. At the same time, we have Imperial Fighters for the Reikland Reavers. So, with the introductions all out of the way, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you photos and videos of both teams as well as the rosters. If you want to see exactly what my friends are bringing for this one, go to pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this game on a roll. Alright, so the first thing we start off with the pregame, of course. Both of my friends also rolled off with their fan factors on this one, and both of them have a fan factor of 4 up. On the right hand side, this will be the dugout as well as the materials for the Gouged Eye over here on the left hand side. This dugout will be used for the points and tracking as well as the variables for the Reikland Reavers. So both teams have a fan factor of 4. At the same time, my friends also rolled off on the kickoff table to see which of them will be going kicking and receiving. The Reikland Reavers will be kicking it off in the first half of the game, and therefore the Gouged Eye will actually be the receiving team. So my friends, of course, rolled off to see exactly where the ball landed. It landed approximately here, just left of Uzek the Loon, which is the thrower for the Gouged Eye, and ready to be picked up later on when the game started. At the same time, our friends also rolled off on the kickoff table and rolled pitch invasion. So because of that, fans basically stormed the pitch and started attacking players. And unfortunately for Sister Serial, she was the one who actually got a stun on this one. As you can see, her catcher, player number 1, Abelhard Fruck, he was actually stunned, so he's laying on the ground now, and he is currently just, stunned by being attacked by members of the Orcs table. And at the same time, we also rolled up for the weather on this one, and it's a perfect weather conditions for a beautiful game of Blood Bowl. So now that the pre-game is over with, time for us to start with turn number 1 of the first half of the game. Alright, so that takes directly to turn number 1 for the Gouged Eye. As you can see over here on the top, Uzek the Loon actually moved up forward pretty swiftly. He was able to pick up the ball. Unfortunately for my friend Brother Grimm, the first time he tried to pick up the ball, he actually failed his agility test. But because Uzek the Loon also has sure hands, he was able to re-roll that. So because I moved up his maximum movement allowance right over here on the left-hand side on the left-hand Y field. Now, unfortunately for my friend at the same time, though, he also had one of his blockers also try to go directly into a blitzer. He forgot that player number 5 was actually a blitzer. So because he did try to do a blocking action, unfortunately he got the result both knocked down, and because player number 5 from the human team is a blitzer, he's perfectly fine, so no harm, no foul there. But for the Orcs, though, he got knocked down. And because of that, it caused an immediate turnover. And so because of that, we're going directly to the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes directly to Reikland Reavers turn number 1 for the first half of the game, and as you can see right here on the tabletop, quite a bit of action actually took place during the first turn. So starting up over here on the top, as you can see here, we have a couple of players who are actually moving up forward here on the left-hand side in order to block a lot of the movements taking place. First thing that ends up happening is that player number 10, his name is Tillman Becker, actually moves all the way from the line of scrimmage and starts making his way directly over to the left-hand white field in order to stop the advances taking place with all these Orc players moving up into the distance there as well. As you can see, these players also moved up as well. One of the most dramatic places here was actually this blitzer over here. Blitzer number 5 is his name. Player number 5 is Lanrig Machthold was his name. He actually pulls a blitz off and managed to hit player number 10 for the Orcs. He's just a normal blocker and lineman named Ugrod Gormless is his name. Managed to nail that guy as well as managed to push him down and to move through as well, so that way they can move up forward. What ended up happening is they actually both rolled the knockdown skill, but because he's a blitzer, he was able to move through no problem because he has the block skill. So because he's laying down the ground, he is currently stunned as well. Meanwhile, over here in the back end, as you can see here, over on the left-hand side, we do have some action taking place. Probably the most dramatic one over here was this blitzer player. This player here being player number, I believe that's player 6. That's right, his name is player number 6 on that part. So player number 6, his name is Max Herzog. He is a blitzer, managed to put out player number 12, which is located over here for the Orcs and Goblins. So because of that, player number 12, his name is Muckdragon the Orrible, gets knocked out, so because he'll need to roll up at the end of every drive to see if he can actually come back into play again. Probably the biggest one, though, that took place was Thargal the Immovable, which is the Ogre. He did try to throw a block directly into Toothgut Bonk Smasher, the Troll, but unfortunately for him, though, he failed that, and he gets a knockdown result instead, causing immediate turnover to turn number 2 for the Orcs, for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to turn number 2 for the first half for the Gouged Eye, and as you can see on the pitch, quite a bit of action actually happened. So starting up over here on the top, so Orc player number 10, Ugrod Growlers, he actually stands back up again and actually assists player number 11, which his name is Bloodgob Killispleen, to block player number 5, which is Agis Korgnig. And so because they actually managed to put a POW on that one, and so because that player number 11 kind of follows through over here on the top at the same time. Meanwhile, for the Gouged Eye, player number 8, which is the big one blocker, Ugrod the Slaughterer, managed to block player number 12, Lanford Kramer, managed to put a push result and managed to shove right back almost next to that throw over there. At the same time, over here on the top, Uzak the Loon, the player number 1, which is the thrower, he actually does a moves his maximum movement allowance along here along the top of the wide zone, and he decides to go for it by rolling a 4 up on his D6 die to actually move up 1 square forward, so because of that, he's doing pretty good over there. Meanwhile, in the middle of the pitch over here, Toothgut Bonk Smasher, the Troll, decided to foul Thargal the Immovable, actually got a stun result on him, and was actually not caught by the referee during the same time as well. At the same time, Golrock the One-Eyed, who is player number 2 for the Orcs, he's a big end blocker, managed to throw a block directly into player number 9. Max Herzog got a power result, so because he managed to push him back a square as well. Meanwhile, Zogwarp the Goblin, he moves up his maximum allowance directly towards his line of scrimmage, so that way it looks like Brother Grimm will have 2 options, or try to score a touchdown in this first half of the game. After that, player number 9, Bedax, this guy over here is a blitzer, Face Skull Bedax his name, managed to block player number 6, Lanrig Manhold, managed to put a stumble result on him, so he managed to push him back as well, and eventually the drive does end when Orc player number 5, Crumb Grub Ribsnort, tries to attempt blocking Andre Geffing, but it unfortunately rolls a player down result instead, which basically ends the drive right now, this turn, for the Orcs, and the same time causing immediate turnover for the Reikland Reavers. So that takes us immediately to the top of turn number 2 for the Reikland Reavers, but unfortunately though, a legal procedure occurred. My friend Sister Stereo forgot to move her turn marker, so because of that, that does count as a penalty, which immediately caused an immediate turnover. So because of my poor friend Sister Stereo forgot to move her piece, so because of that, it now immediately goes back to the Orcs for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to turn number 3 for the first half for the Gouged Eye. And so because I go directly to the top over here, so player number 2, which is the big unblocker, Golrot One-Eye, managed to blitz it directly into player number 11, Berthold Reese, and actually good assist from Face Skull Bedag, which is player number 9. I was able to basically push back that character, so able to push that guy back, so because of that, he just moves on from there. From there, we go, of course, to Zogwarp. Zogwarp basically moves through from the hole that was caused right in the middle of the lines there. by the player, so because he just kind of slips right through and starts moving his way forward, so that way they get some more options in order to pass or in order to score for the Gouged Eye as well. Meanwhile, player number 5, that guy over here, what's his name again? His name is Krumgrob Ripsnort. He managed to stand back up as well. At the same time, over here on the top, player number 1, which is Uzek the Loon, who's the thrower, he actually moves up his maximum move allowance. He decides not to go for it because he's so close to the end zone, and since so many people are away from him as well. Now, meanwhile, at the same time, player number 3, Grabrak Gutwrencher, as well as Bloodgob Killispleen, player number 11, decide to block directly into Tillman Becker, which is player number 10. They managed to knock him out as well, so because that he immediately goes directly into the dugout, and so because he needed to roll up at the end of the drive to see exactly what happens to him as well. Now, as we go through this, of course, Ugrad Gormless, he decides to move through, which is player number 10 for the Orcs. He moves up as well. Same thing with Tufgot Bonk Smasher the Troll. He decides to move up as well. Looks like they're trying to create like a defensive screen here for Uzek the Loon. And then finally, player number 8, Uzrag the Slaughterer, managed to push Landfree Kramer back, which is player number 12, and managed to push him back as well, thus ending the this current turn for turn number 3 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes us directly to turn number 3 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see in this photo, my friend Sister did move her turn marker this time, and some pretty dramatic things occurred in this turn. First of all, Landfill Kramer, which is player number 12, he's a lineman. He actually decides to do a blitz. He moves all the way from pretty much the line of scrimmage, moves all the way and basically goes for it and tackles and blocks, blitzes directly into player number 1, Uzek the Loon, which is the Orc thrower. Now, because he's so close to the square, we did roll a power result for that, so because he does get pushed into the crowd, and here's where the dramatic part comes in. First of all, Uzek the Loon is a casualty injury, and to make matters worse, when they roll on the couch, he rolled up dead. So because of that, Uzek the Loon is killed, and he is eliminated off of the Gouged Eye's roster. Just like that, they suffer their very first casualty of the season. Now, because he was killed, the ball, of course, gets thrown back. A 6 was rolled and actually moved back 10 squares over to the left-hand side over here. And we'll talk about exactly what happens there in a second. Now, what ended up happening, though, for the rest of the team, as you can see, most of the team pretty much stood up or rolled over, depending on what their situation was. So that way they can get ready for their next turn. However, probably the second most dramatic thing, player number 5, Aegis Koenig, who was originally located over here in the middle portion of the line of scrimmage, he gets up and he goes for it twice, moving all the way to the top, grabbing the ball, and then moving over one more square as well, heading directly towards the Orcs end zone. And as you can see, he's got a nice little bubble around him in order to escape. It's kind of like a Hail Mary go at this point, trying to get to the end of the line in order to score a point and redeem herself, but Sister Serial pretty much has the ball. And that makes up turn number 3 for the Reikland Reavers. And that takes directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Gouged Eye. So what ended up happening is that my buddy, Brother Grib, decided to grab blitzer number 3, which is the guy over here with the blue hair. His name is Gutwrencher. But before he was able to move that piece, though, my friend Sister Sarah called an illegal procedure, because if you look down here on the bottom, he did not move his turn marker before he grabbed that player, which immediately caused an immediate turnover. So because that turn number 4 is over for the Orcs and for the Gouged Eye, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Reikland Reavers. As you can see in this photo as well, bam, my friend Sister Sarah managed to get her first touchdown with Aegis Koenig. As you can see, she actually moved up her maximum move of 7 squares, went for it twice. The first one she passed, but the second one she failed. So because of that, she did use one of her re-rolls in order to do so, and scored herself her very first touchdown for Season 2 of Tales in the Tacklezone. So because of that, now my friends will of course have to re-roll again and reposition their troops and their players in order to do for another drive. Alright, so the end of the drive is successful with, and everyone's casualties they had before were knocked out, making it successfully back onto the pitch again. Unfortunately for the Gouged Eye, though, they are one handicap player short because they lost Uzek the Loon being killed by the crowd of Imperial players they got pushed into. As you can see, both of my friends decided just to line up against each other, just square off right off the bat, so everyone's pretty much on the line of scrimmage. The ball is kicked off by the Reikland Reavers directly towards the Gouged Eye. As you can see, the ball lands directly right there, kind of catty corner to Zogwarp, the Goblin player on the Gouged Eye as well. When they rolled up for the events table, they rolled up an 8, which means there's a change in weather conditions. And when my friends rolled for that one, they rolled perfect weather for Blood Bowl once again. So because of the ball just scatters once over to the 7 o'clock position. So with the kickoff over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 5 for my friend Brother Grimm and the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 5 for the first half for the Gouged Eye. And this is after several activations for their players. The first thing that's happening, of course, is that Zogwarp, the War Clearer, he actually moves up. and he also grabs himself the ball and actually moves up all the way his maximum movement allowance as well. Meanwhile, that's carrying player number 12, Mukdagran the Orrible, actually blitzes directly into player number 12, Landfred Kramer, with an assistance that they're actually getting knocked out results. So because of that, Landrick Kramer, player number 12, will be in the knocked out box, and he'll need to wait to the end of a drive or to see what will actually happen from there. Now from there, of course, the blitzer Facegall Badox, player number 6, tries to do a block directly into Landrick Macthold, who's player number 9. They both got the knockdown result, but because both of them have blocked, nothing much happens, so they just kind of face off against each other. Meanwhile, Crim Grub Ribsnort, Orc player number 5, does manage to push player number 13, Andre Gaffing, directly towards the edge where the crowd is located at, which, as we saw before, can be very, very precarious in case you're not paying attention to what you're doing. And then finally, number 2, big blocker number 2, Golrot One Eye, tries to block player number 9, Max Herzog, but they both get knocked down results because they both go crashing to the ground, and that pretty much ends over the turnover for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes us to turn number 5 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see, something really dramatic ended up happening. First thing that ended up happening, of course, is that my friends this show that activated Conrad Froelich, player number 2, her catcher. He actually decides to do a blitz. He moves all the way directly at the square, moves right back to Magdragon the Orrible, manages to get through his tackle zone all 3 squares, passing his agility test, to make it all the way to Zogwarp. Only when he decides to blitz, he rolls a knockdown result for himself, so because he gets knocked out, and at insult to injury, he fails his armor test and gets stunned. So he's currently laying on the ground while Zogwarp the Warp Killer looks on and just kind of laughs at him. And that pretty much makes it the drive for this activation for turn number 5 for the Reikland Reavers. And for turn number 6, my buddy, once again, Brother Grim forgets to move his turn marker, which creates a legal procedure, which causes immediate turnover. So because he does lose his turn. And before you guys are judging, my friends, remember, we don't really play Blood Bowl all that regularly on this channel. So because simple mistakes like that is costing my friends turns, but, you know, this is the first time we're actually playing Blood Bowl for a very long time, so you really can't judge them too badly. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 6 for the first half for the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see in this video, some impressive things happened. First of all, Thorgal the Unmovable, player number 13, the Ogre, does manage to put a knockout result, managed to do a power result directly onto Toothcut Black's Bonk Smasher, pushing back a square, allowing Thorgal the Unmovable to move up one more square forward. So what that does, that actually opens up a hole right here in the middle of the line. So because of that, our friends this show then activates player number 1, Abelhard Fruch, who is her thrower. Now that character does try to blitz through, so he goes directly from behind the line of scrimmage, makes it through the line of scrimmage, and blitz through directly towards Zogwarp the World Killer. And he tries to go for it to move one more square so that way he can complete his blitz square, but unfortunately for Cicero, though, she failed her roll, so because of that he stumbles, which causes immediate turnover, and heads directly to turn number 7 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Gouged Eye. As you can see, some dramatic movement have taken place. First of all, Zogwarp the World Killer, the Goblin player, he actually manages to move up his maximum allowance and goes for it twice, at the same time burning up one of his rerolls in order to do so, and Brother Grimm puts Zogwarp the World Killer within 8 squares of actually getting directly towards the end zone, which means he'll have to go for it twice if he wants to get a touchdown on this one, so he is so close to actually tying up the game for the first half of the game. Now afterwards, of course, we have Golrot One Eye, the big gun player number 2. He managed to stand up. At the same time, player number 12, Macdragon the Orrible, managed to block player number 9, Max Herzog, with a power results because it managed to push him over and knock him over as well. However, over here on the bottom of the white zone there is where some of the most dramatic plays took place. Player number 5, Crumgrub Ribsnort, the blitzer, managed to block player number 3, Andre Gaffing, and not only does he manage to block him, he manages to put it with a power result and push him directly into the crowd. Ends up getting a knocked out result. So because of that, Andre Gaffing will need to roll at the end of the drive to see if he makes a full recovery or not. Meanwhile, at the same time, player number 9, Facegall Badax, the blitzer, managed to block player number 6, Landrick Macholt, and not only does he manage to hit him, he also managed to cause a casualty, breaking right through his armor, and at the same time causing a niggling injury, as well as also making sure he misses his next game as well. So because that also earns himself 2 star player points at the same time. And at this point, my buddy Brother Grimm decides to call the end of his turn, just because he doesn't want to risk losing any more of his players. And with that being said, we move directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 7 for the first half for the Reikland Reavers. And the first thing that ended up happening is, of course, that my friend decides to activate her thrower. Her thrower actually tries to do a blitz action. Even though he's standing up, he loses 3 squares to his movement. Was able to go for it twice and tries to put a blitz directly onto Zogwar. But unfortunately for her, though, Comrade Fulik, the only thing he was able to do, though, was to basically push him forward is all he did. So basically that makes it a little bit easier for this guy to actually score a touchdown next turn. At the same time, she also tries to catch up with the catcher as well, thrower as well, but unfortunately she decides not to go for it just because she doesn't want to stumble. Now she does have one of her linemen over here on the main line try to pull out and dodge so that way he can actually go after Zogwarp with a blitz. But unfortunately for her, though, she failed her dodge test. That causes immediate turnover as well. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 8 for the first half for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 8 for the Gouged Eye, and as you can see in this video clip right here, Zogwarp the World Kick does make it directly to the end zone using a go for it. You actually had to roll twice for that one, using one of his rerolls in order to get that, and Zogwarp the World Killer takes directly to the end zone with a touchdown for the Gouged Eye. And just like that, the end of top of the first half, both of my friends are equally tied right now with 1 touchdown apiece. My friends take a break real quick for halftime to reorganize our fighters, and when we will go again for the second half. Alright, so with halftime over, we go directly to the top of the second half for turn number 1 for the Reikland Reavers. The kickoff occurs, as you can see, with a little kickoff marker, and the ball lands directly to the left of Comrade Abelhard, the thrower. Goes over here on the left-hand side of the field. However, though, when they rolled up on the kickoff table, they did roll officious ref, which basically means that one of the players, player number 9, as you can see right here, his name is Max Herzog, who is a lineman. He gets in an argument with the referee and he gets sent off. So because of that, things are not looking really good for the Reikland Reavers right now. 2 of their players are still knocked out, still recovering. At the same time, they also lost one of their players to injury. They're playing at a severe handicap against most of the team left for the Gouged Eye. The Gouged Eye do have one guy who's dead, but other than that, though, they still have pretty much their entire team. So with that being said, an immediate turnover takes place, and we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the second half of the game, and as you can see here, the Gouged Eye had some pretty dramatic movement taking place for the most part all over the pitch. So starting over here in the top wide zone over here, player number 3, Gebrook Gut-Wrencher, managed to stun player number 4, Gilbert Gottgraf, as you can see right here, being laid out right now, so he is currently stunned as well. Another one that also really took place was interesting right here is the middle of the line of scrimmage. Toothgut Bonk Smasher, the troll, does manage to push Thargal the Immovable out of the way, and what that does basically frees up the rest of the line of scrimmage for players to move through for the most part as well. Now, aside from that as well, we do have a couple things taking place over here for player number 2, Big and Blocker, there we go. Golrot One-Eye, number 2. He does a blitz and manages to push player number 10, Tillman Becker, over to the side as well, which also kind of frees up the center line of scrimmage. And probably the biggest one, which is probably the biggest one, was Urgrog the Slaughter, which is player number 8, which is this guy over here. This blitzer does manage to block as well as Bernhold Rice, which is player number 11, and actually puts a casualty on him as well. So because that, he does go in the penalty injury box, but he's only badly injured, so he does miss the rest of the game. But at the same time, that is 5 players down for the Reikland Reavers, and they're playing at a massive handicap against the rest of the Gouged Eye. And as you can see, the rest of the Gouged Eye move up forward as well with the rest of their players. We have blitzers moving in from the top as well as the bottom wide zones, heading directly towards Comrade Abelhard, so that guy's kind of like in trouble, which is their thrower. At the same time, the rest of the team is also moving forward as well, looking at taking the offense, trying to get to that ball as quickly as possible in order to get another touchdown. And that pretty much makes up all the turns for turn number 1 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 2 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see over here, quite a bit of dramatic movement took place on the table. First thing that ended up happening is Abelhard Frua, play number 1, the thrower for the Reikland Reavers, actually moves up, picks up the ball, and then moves right back down to the center of his deployment area so that we can get a throw in later on. At the same time, Conrad Frua, player number 2, who is actually being marked at the tackle zone over here in the top, managed to pass his dodge and actually managed to move all the way right here to the middle part of the wide zone as well as the line of scrimmage as well. It looks like he's kind of going for the bottom part of the wide zone and try to run the ball that way by probably doing a pass, it looks like. At the same time, player number 10, Tillman Becker, the lineman, managed to push Macrogon the Orrible, managed to push him up forward. At the same time, blitzer number 5, Aegis Koenig, does manage to blitz Face Dax, Orc player number 9, managed to push him back as well. And at the same time, Thargal the Immovable does manage to push player number 8, which is Ugrag the Slaughter, which is one of the Orc Biggins, out of the way as well. And that pretty much makes up turn number 2 for the Reikland Reavers. With that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Gouged Eye, but unfortunately for my buddy though, he did fail to move his turn marker, so because that does cause immediate turnover with a legal procedure taking place, so because that we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Reikland Reavers, so our friend Sister Cyril gets to go again. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Reikland Reavers for the second half. As you can see, some dramatic action is taking place on the table. First of all, player number 1, Abelhard Fruick, actually successfully throws a pass with a -2 penalty directly to Conrad Froelich. Actually managed to pass it near the line of scrimmage, also earning himself a 1-star player point at the same time. Now, Conrad Froelich, once he makes that catch, he runs 10 squares, as you can see, all the way down the center of the field directly towards the end zone for the Gouged Eye. He actually goes for it twice and actually successfully passes both those going for it twice tests and makes it all the way directly towards the end as well. At the same time that's occurring, of course, the player over here, number 5, Aegis Koenig, actually does a POW result directly into Facegal Badox, player number 9. Managed to put him down as well. And unfortunately for Thargal the Immovable, he does try to do exactly the same thing towards Ugrag the Slaughter, player number 8, but unfortunately he is knocked down instead. And that pretty much makes up the actions for turn number 3. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Gouged Eye. And so for his very first activation, my buddy Brother Grimm activates Toothgut Bonk Smasher, who does a splits action running all the way directly to Conrad Froelich and actually managed to put a POW action on him, which caused the ball to bounce all the way directly to the bottom square here. At the same time, player number 9, Facegal Badox, originally was down over here. He managed to get back on his feet again with a -3 movement penalty and was able to dodge out of the tackle zone and move directly over to pick up the ball as well, so he is now in possession of the ball. Meanwhile, Zogwarp the Rule Killer does move up from the top wide zone in order to come down here in order to add some support if necessary. And finally, for the very last activation, we have Golrot One-Eyed. He basically moves up and actually blocks player number 10, Tillman Becker. Managed to land a POW result on him, but was able to puncture his armor, so he's perfectly fine. And that pretty much makes up all the activations for my friend Brother Grimm. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of number 4 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see, some dramatic movement is taken out. For most of the action, though, most of the Reikland Reavers were pretty much just getting back on their feet again. However, the most dramatic moment, however, took place with Aegis Koenig, player number 5. He does a blitz action directly into Facegal Badox. Player number 9 managed to get the POW result as well, managed to push him back a square. When the ball bounced, it bounced directly towards Aegis Koenig, who passed an agility test, was able to catch the ball as well. At the same time, player number 2, Conrad Froelich, the catcher, he actually managed to get back on his feet and managed to escape the dodge on the tackle zone on Toothgut Bonk Smash, and actually moves all the way directly 1 square away from the end zone. So that way he has some options. Cicero could actually pass the ball or run it on our next turn to try a second touchdown. At the same time, as you can see over here, this player number 10, that player's name is Tillman Becker, managed to get up on his feet as well, escaped the tackle zone from these guys, was able to move all the way directly towards the back of Toothgut Bonk Smasher, so that way he was in his tackle zone. So if he tries to go after any of these players for a blitz, he will need to pass a agility test in order to do that to dodge. And that pretty much makes up turn number 4 for the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Gouged Eye. As you can see in this video right over here at the top, Zogwarp the Rule Killer does try to blitz directly into Conrad Froelich, but unfortunately, though, he rolls a knockdown result. And to make matters worse, my friend Brother Grimm does use up his very last reroll to re-roll it, and he rolls exactly the same thing. So because that Zogwarp the Rule Killer does get knocked down, luckily his armor does not get punctured, so he's perfectly fine, and that pretty much ends the turnover for turn number 4 for the... Number 4 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes us right to the top of turn number 5 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you could probably imagine, Aegis Koenig goes next, and he runs the ball directly to the end zone, resulting in a touchdown for the Reikland Reavers. So now the Reikland Reavers are now sitting at 2 touchdowns against 1 touchdown for the Gouged Eye, and with that, my friends will need to, of course, re-rack their players, test for their knocked out players, and go directly to the end of the drive. Alright, once again, my friends re-rack their players for the next drive. As you can see, for the Reikland Reavers, they have more players on the table this time. The 2 players they had that were knocked out made full recovery, so because of that, they're back on the tabletop. And as you can see, when the kickoff occurred, the kickoff scattered all the way up here to the top wide zone, right here at the very edge of where the audience is actually sitting at, which is absolutely crazy. At the same time, also, the kickoff effect was brilliant coaching, so my friends had to roll a d6 to see which of them were higher. Unfortunately for my friend, Sister Cyril, though, Brother Grimm got that one, so because he does get 1 additional reroll now, so he has until the end of this drive in order to use up that reroll, otherwise he does lose it. And that pretty much takes directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Gouged Eye. So the first thing they do is they activate Zog Warps. My friend Brother Grim tries to run Zog Warp directly at the top to pick up the ball. Unfortunately for him, though, he does fail to pick up the ball. He does try to re-roll it. Unfortunately, though, he fails again, so the ball bounces over one square over. And at the same time, my buddy Brother Grim loses his re-roll that he just earned through brilliant coaching. And that pretty much ends the turn number 5 for the Gouged Eye, which takes directly to turn number 6 for the Reikland Reavers. Alright, so that takes us right to the top of turn number 6 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can see, some moves have taken place over here on the top. First of all, we have our player number 3, Andre Gaffing, the Blitzer, manages to blitz directly into the opposing Blitzer, Brock Gutwrencher, player number 3, ended with a push result, and managed to put him out of the wide zone, opening up this gap that took place in the middle. Now, probably the most dramatic play was by Gilbert Gottgraf, who was player number 4, was a blitzer. He managed to dodge all the way through the squares of the tackle zone and managed to make it all the way directly to this square, managed to dodge the attack there as well, and picks up the ball as well, so now they're in possession of the ball. Now, meanwhile, in the middle, Thargal, the unmovable, does try to block Toothgut Bonk Smasher. However, it ended up with the result with both of them being knocked down, which immediately caused a turnover as well, leading us directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Gouged Eye. Unfortunately for my friend Brother Grim, he does activate a couple things. First of all, he activates Toothgut Bonk Smasher, managed to get back on his feet again. However, he does try to get Zog Warp, the World Killer, to try to do a tackle and a block directly onto this guy over here, the guy that actually has a possession of the ball. Unfortunately for him, though, he fails it, and he actually gets a knockdown result instead, so because he is stunned, so he's currently knocked out as well, which also causes an immediate turnover directly toward the Reikland Reavers. So now that we're done with that activation, we go directly to the top of turn number 7 for my friend Cesariel, as well as for the Reikland Reavers. So from there, we go directly immediately to the top of turn number 7 for the Reikland Reavers, and as you can imagine, Gilbert Gottgraf was activated, and he ran all the way to the end zone, scoring another touchdown for the Reikland Reavers. And just like that, the Reikland Reavers are now up to 3 touchdowns, as opposed to the Orcs, who only have 1 so far. So things are not looking good right now for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so at the end of the drive, my friends re-rack their players again, and they go for a kickoff. Once again, the ball lands right directly, kind of in the middle of the end zone, towards the end zone for the Gouged Eye. However, when it came to the kickoff result, they got open snap, which means that D3+3 open players are allowed to move 1 square forward if they want to, and that's exactly what happened. As you can see now, the entire line of scrimmage is totally occupied by 2 Orc players that my friend Brother Grim decided to move up. He decided to move up his 2 blitzers, 1 forward square over into the opposing team's side as well. He also did exactly the same thing with Zogworth, the World Killer, to move it 1 square closer to the ball. So that was actually kind of lucky for my friend Brother Grim. And that takes directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Gouged Eye. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Gouged Eye. As you can see, some dramatic movement did take place on the tabletop. First of all, Zogworth does move up and get the ball, manage to successfully pass an agility test to capture it. And he runs down directly to the bottom wide zone here at the same time. While that's occurring, these blitzers do try to move these guys, but they get both knockdown results, and since both sides have blocked, nothing much happens, so they're just kind of standing their ground, not doing very much. Meanwhile, on the top of the wide zone as well, as you can see, the blitzers managed to push their opposing blitzers out into different squares to kind of open up the top there for a little bit as well. However, the most dramatic movement, though, took place over here with pushes taking place for the Gouged Eye, pushing back some of the defensive players, making this nice little corridor here that Zogworth could actually run through if he needs to. However, though, when it came to Golgrot One Eye, though, he does manage to get a knockdown result, so because that he is knocked down, at the same time ending this activation for turn number 7 for the Gouged Eye, which means now we go directly to the top of turn number 8 for the Reikland Reavers. So from there, we go directly to the top of turn number 8 for the Reikland Reavers for their very last set of activations. And as you can see in this photo, Conrad Froelich actually decides to do a blitz action, running right between these 2 players here, managing to pass his dodge test every single time and smashing directly into Zogworth, the World Killer. Managed to get a power result as well, so the ball did bounce and fumble, and it bounced directly to the 6 o'clock position directly towards him, and he managed to catch the ball, and now he's in possession of the ball as well, which is absolutely insane. And at this point, he basically takes a knee, is what he decides to do, and because at the same time, since my buddy Brother Grim realized there's no way he's going to be able to get a touchdown the last turn, that pretty much ends the game in a victory for the Reikland Reavers with 3-1 on the touchdowns. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the post game because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so now it's time for the post-game, starting off with the Gouged Eye of the Orcs, played by my friend Brother Grimm. For the outcome for them, they were actually defeated, and at the same time they managed to score 1 touchdown. They inflicted 2 casualties upon their enemies, and at the same time they also scored 0 league points because they lost. Now, when it came for their winnings, they were able to manage to scrounge up 50,000 gold pieces, and when they came to their dedicated fans, there were actually no change for that characteristic. Now, for the injuries, unfortunately for my buddy Brother Grimm, he suffered the first death of the campaign. Player number 1, Uzek the Loon, his thrower, rolled up dead, so because of that, he is eliminated off the roster as well, and my friend is actually 1 teammate short now for his overall roster. Now, for advancements, Ugrag the Slaughter, the Black Orc Biggin, managed to score MVP on this one, earning a grand total of 6 star player points, and with that he learned the multiple block skill. So because of that, and also increases value by 20,000 gold pieces at the same time as well. So because of that, Ugrag the Slaughterer now has 110,000 gold pieces in value with that one. Now for his inducements and notations and for trading, of course, he just decided to take all 50,000 gold pieces and place into the treasury, and the reason why is because he wants to save up in order to recruit another thrower for his team as well. His current record now is at 0 wins and 1 loss, and his new team rating now is at 925 points. So moving on to Sister Serial's team, the Reikland Reavers, her human team. For her outcome, she actually won this game, so because she also scored 3 touchdowns during the game, also inflicted 1 casualty upon her enemy by killing Uzek the Loon, at the same time also earned 3 league points for her team. For her winning, she was able to scrounge up 70,000 gold pieces, and she was also able to increase her dedicated fans by 1, so now she has a dedicated fan factor of 2. For her injuries, she actually suffers 2 injuries in this game. Player number 6, Landrick Mackholt, which is one of her blitzers, actually suffered a niggling injury as well as missed the next game as well because of the injuries that he actually sustained in the previous game. At the same time, player number 11, Bernhold Reise, which is a lineman, he actually makes a full recovery, so he's perfectly fine. Now, as for advancements, 3 members of this team did advance. Player number 4, Gilbert Gottstadt, that guy is a blitzer. He earned 3 star player points and learned the tackle skill, increasing his value by 10,000 gold pieces, followed by player number 5, Aegis Koenig. He's a blitzer. He earned 6 star player points and earned the break tackle skill and increased his value by 20,000 gold pieces. And then finally, player number 12, Lanfred Kramer, who is also the MVP for his team, managed to raise up 6 star player points as well and learn the Dauntless skill, increasing his value by 20,000 gold pieces as well. Now for his inducements, he managed to scrounge up 95,000 gold pieces in total for Sister Serial's team. With those gold pieces, she recruited another knower catcher, player number 8, Uldrich Herzl is his name, and he cost 60,000 gold pieces. She then took the remaining 35,000 gold pieces and placed it in her team's treasury. Now our new record now is at 1 win and 0 losses, and her new rating for her team now is at 1,090 points. So there you guys have it, our very first game of Season 2 Blood Bowl Battle Reports in the books. Our very first game of the Old World Conference is over with. We'll be uploading these battle reports every single Wednesday on this channel, and the next week's episode will be in the New World Conference, where we have Black Orcs versus Imperial Nobility, so that one should be really cool as well. So that's good for this, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest, greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for listening, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.